Ine. Hello, Zach. It's been a while, and here I am now in the middle of in-service training here at the wonderful compound of Masembe. It's where Peace Corps training happens. It's where we did a lot of our, not language lessons, but cultural lessons, essentially, while I was in pre-service training during my first 2 months. I'm just ending my second week of training. The first week of health-specific training, there was a lot of health/agriculture related training in our first week. Some of that boils down to nutrition, some of it not so much, some of it just confusing. In other news though, I finished my community needs assessment survey, or at least what I was trying to get done of it. I finished the compound-to-compound interviews and did a little bit of data analysis and found some interesting trends. Though that said, I haven't had the opportunity to dig in quite as much as I was originally hoping to. Also, I admittedly can see that I built my study wrong in a lot of ways. But this is just supposed to be a baseline. There's more research to do, and there's more research that I will be doing. The Community Needs Assessment Survey is something I've been told repeatedly is not something you finish. At least not in the sense that it's done. I'm not supposed to know everything there is to know about my community and its needs at this point. This is just a jumping off point, and I should continue to look into the needs of my community and search for purpose through the entirety of my surface. So one thing that made me proud, a good thing about my community, is finding out that they don't throw away colostrum. To put this in perspective, because there's a good chance that you don't know what colostrum means, colostrum is a sort of pre-milk. For the first few days after a woman has given birth, she produces a darker, thicker milk called colostrum. This milk is extremely good for you. It's much more rich in vitamins than later milk. It also contains antibodies, and this is something that's excellent for the child's underdeveloped immune system and helps them keep from getting sick. It's extremely important to the infant's development that they get colostrum because it gives them such a boost in the development of everything to come. But at least in some parts of the Gambia, there's this belief that colostrum is dirty milk, and you need to get rid of it, not feed them, or feed them as little as possible at first in order to wait for the milk to be clean. That said, Bese doesn't do that. Bese does the best practice of feeding them immediately after birth. On the darker side though, a lot of them don't know danger signs during pregnancy. Stuff that you should go to the hospital for, and I found out later that even if they do, there is some problems. There's this pernicious belief that a woman who has complications, a woman who has danger signs during pregnancy, if something is going wrong with the pregnancy in general, that she is a bad wife, that she is a bad mother. Even though what we're talking about are medical issues, these are not her fault. This desire for not having these complications results in a desire for people to not want to look for these complications and not want to report them, because they don't want to be seen as bad mothers. Ignorance in general is made to blossom. And while I can't yet be certain that this is something that is thought to be the case in my village, it's possible and may even be likely. One thing I can be certain of is that it's something that they are nervous to talk about, and it's a topic where there does seem to be a lot of ignorance. A lot of ignorance in simply being able to name the signs of something going wrong. And I'm realizing this episode's probably going to be a downer. I'd like to talk about something interesting regarding malaria, something that is rather dark. It's luckily uncommon in my cohort. In fact, if anybody's doing this that's not public, there are people that choose not to take malaria prophylaxis. There are people that choose not to undergo the malaria prevention efforts, and these are Peace Corps volunteers we're talking about. The thing that's fascinating to me about them is that the way they go about it, the way they talk about it, the whole situation regarding it directly mirrors anti-vaccination. What they have a problem with is stuff like sleeping under bed nets, taking malaria prophylaxis, preventative measures in order to stop the tide of this deadly disease. In both cases, it's an issue with prevention. And furthermore, in both cases, it's something where it can be seen as a problem born of success. According to the WHO, malaria death rates have been cut in half since 2000, and that's huge. The fact that some people see that it's not as deadly as they thought, especially with the horror stories I've heard about malaria in the past, it makes sense why they would then say, oh, it's not bad at all. But The fact of the matter is it still kills people. Using data from sources listed down below, I was able to determine that malaria deaths today account for nearly 1% of deaths worldwide. That's huge. When they are talking about billions, that's huge. People are dying in droves of this deadly disease, and yet because it's not as sensational, because it's not as big as it used to be, people don't respect it. There's one girl I know outright looked at a video that we watched examining cases in which people died of malaria and called it government propaganda, trying to get us to take medicine. From a public health standpoint, we've reached a point in America where we can look the medicines that save lives in the face and say, what are you doing? And now I'm nervous about people doing that in the Gambia. Is that what the future holds? I genuinely hope not. So yeah, some of my uncertainties in the community needs assessment survey lead to another interesting topic, and that is uncertainty itself. While I was at UNCG, I cultivated in myself this high standard of epistemology. Always wanted to make sure I knew stuff and had good reason to know stuff. And everything I didn't have good reason to know, I would be uncertain about. In the Gambia, there's a lot of stuff that I know because I've been told. And that is a pretty low standard for epistemology, especially when public health is concerned. One thing I guess I worry about is my own epistemological standards shrinking. I want to know things for good reasons. I want to be able to back up the things I say. I'm very nervous to getting to the point where, well, it's so much easier to just say this is true because it's true. That's compounded here when you don't have the language to properly explain things, when other people that are all around you are all saying things this is true because it's true and have not seen the evidence for it. A lot of this is uncomfortable. One thing that I would like to do is influence people to be more epistemologically sound, but that's I guess another thing that's nerve-wracking about the culture is there is such a high regard for people based on who they are. Our respect for elders is the most obvious of them, in which somebody who is older is seen as more epistemologically sound than a person who's younger. This isn't something that is 100% of the time true. I've found there are times people believe me. The fact that I am an American is another status symbol of who I am that gives me epistemological authority. I try to give reason, but I don't know how much that gets through. And on the subject of just me being an American, at one point a man came to my village selling oregano and ginseng mixed in a plastic bottle. Because it was well packaged, everybody called it medicine. Everybody thought this is medicine, this is good medicine, even though it clearly said on the side that its only ingredients were oregano and ginseng. And furthermore, it had the ridiculous claim of being able to cure pretty much everything from hypertension to erectile dysfunction, making people last longer and have higher sex drives at the same time, which... what? People got excited because they saw the packaging. One of my friends has had the conversation with her host mother multiple times that oatmeal is better than cornflakes, but her host mom doesn't believe her because cornflakes comes in fancy Western packaging. And there is this present idea, this ever-present idea that Western medicine is better than traditional medicine. And well, I think generally speaking that's probably true. Western medicine is much more thoroughly tested and we're much more certain what Western medicine can and can't do, whereas traditional medicine is not very well studied, it's up in the air. I don't want people to choose Western medicine over traditional medicine because Western medicine is inherently better. I want them to choose it because they understand the epistemology behind it, because they understand this idea of certainty. And I'm not certain they do. Furthermore, I'm worried of myself adopting this low epistemological standard for myself, not knowing what I know for good reason, simply being immersed in the culture, immersed with a bunch of other PCVs who most of which do not have high epistemological standards. More than half of them think astrology is fact. I might at some point make astrology a talk of one of these things, not because it's a part of the Gambia, but because it's part of my experience as a Peace Corps volunteer. Because so many Peace Corps volunteers here have such a strong belief in astrology. But nonetheless, being surrounded by people who do not have the epistemological standards I want to have makes it all too easy to forego them. Furthermore, it is work. It's work to look up stuff, work to research things thoroughly. It's work to make sure you have good reasons to know what you know, and that is even more so the case in the Gambia, though how much more so, I'm not sure. I myself still have access to the internet, which puts me in a good position, though that's not true of everybody. I don't have access to a college campus, I don't have access to nearly as many studies. I'm also simply tired a lot more here than I am in the States. The simple fact that having a high epistemological standard takes effort to know things is an incentive for people to either not know things or give up on certainty. That said, all in all, giving up on certainty is not something I intend to do. I intend to keep my epistemological standard as high as I can, as long as I can, until I fall asleep from exhaustion, until I can no longer think. Because I remember the person I was before I held myself to this standard. I remember how much of a jerk I could be about things that simply weren't true. That's not a person I want to be again. Anyway, that's enough for today. Hopefully you're going to be doing something else soon. I'd like to hear some about Bozeman. I'd like to hear some about what you're doing. I'd like to hear about some of the thoughts you're having about the world, sociology, community, biology if you have anything. Any of those topics that you're interested in. I've been spitballing with all these topics I'm interested in that I think about day to day. Here, now let's give me some of yours. These videos aren't that hard to make. All you gotta do is turn your camera sideways. Anyway, Bainakin. See you next time.
This one's got a rock.
Oh, it is.